The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Morning, Chair. I have apologies from Councillor Rawling, and I'll do a very quick roll call if that's okay, if who else is here.
Yep, that's fine.
Councillor Colley.
I'm here. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. You're here yourself, Chair. Councillor Munro.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan.
Present. Good morning.
Thank you. Councillor Rind.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Smith. Not here at the moment. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Would you like me to do the declarations of interest now?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I have two declarations of interest, both for item 9, one from yourself, Chair, as a Director of Tane Heritage Trust, and Councillor Nolan is going to chair that item in your absence. And I also have a declaration of interest from Councillor Collier due to her partner's involvement with the Naval Museum. Is there any further declarations of interest? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the third item on the agenda is the inspection report for St. Duthus Special School. That was, I think, to be introduced by Derek Martin, but Derek can't be with us this morning. Helen, is there anybody from education joining us for that?
I know I don't think Derek's been able to provide anyone to substitute at this clearly quite short notice.
Yeah.
But what I would suggest that, given that I think the reports were very much an update, if members have got any questions, we could either, depending on the complexity, email him for an update. Alternatively, we could invite him. We do have an area business meeting on the 5th of June, so I'm sure he'd be happy to update members at that point.
Okay. So the committee is invited to review and note the content of the report. And I think what we'll do is, as Helen advises, we'll hold that over until the next meeting. But Councillor Ryan, do you want to comment?
Yes, thanks. I think that would be good to hold it over to the next meeting. You know, the report's very good, really, but it's always good to get the educational manager's perspective on it. Yeah. You know, there's been a new head teacher at that school recently, and all that I hear is good news from the school, which was the same in the previous head teacher. Yeah. But there was one or two property issues that maybe should be attended to with the seagull problems that they face down there. Yeah. And how that causes a lot of harm to the children's equipment. So, but I think take your suggestion that we leave it till a future discussion with the area manager. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Helen, I think, did you have your hand up as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to check, are members requesting it come to a future area committee, or would you be content to pick it up at an area business meeting if obviously Derek were free for the date?
Well, no, I think it's reasonable enough for us to discuss it at an area business meeting, if members think that's appropriate. Molly.
Yeah, I think noting the contents of the report, that is appropriate, but I would also suggest that we still maybe make any comments that we wish to make now, just because this is obviously the public facing meeting, and I think we should be very cognizant of that.
Yeah, okay. Are there comments that you'd like to make at this point?
Sorry, you're coming back to me?
Yes, I think we'll do that.
I think I would just say I thought it was a very good comprehensive report, and I was pleased to see how content the parents often were with a lot of what was in the report. I think largely it was everything's moving in the right direction, but there are clearly areas of improvement, but everyone's aware of them. And it seems like there are clear actions to take to get to where they need to be. So overall, I think it's very positive, and they should be proud of the progress they're making.
Thanks,
Well
Molly.
said.
Alistair, was that a legacy hand? I saw you did have your hand up, but it's down now.
Sorry,
Mm.
it was.
Okay. Right. Yes, I think the head teacher, as Alistair said, was only recently appointed. So the inspection came within a few months of the new head teacher being put in post. So yeah, I do think it would be fairly early to be drawing conclusions. So yeah, I think the report is positive, certainly in terms of the relationship between the staff and the pupils, and I think that that's the most important thing. There are, as Molly suggested, there are areas that have been identified for improvement, and I think Alistair's comments are valid as well. I think there are certainly issues in the school grounds. I'm glad the dead trees are down. That's a start, but you know, there's more work that we could be doing there to make the environment more enjoyable and amenable for the staff and for the pupils. So we'll draw those things out when we look at this again. Can we agree that we've reviewed and noted the contents of the report?
Agree.
Thank you. Okay, item 4 is Ross and Cromarty Educational Trust report, which was to be, I think it's prepared by Derek Martin, and I'm assuming would have been introduced by him as well. So we're in the position that I think all we can do is look at the report, and are there any comments on it from any of the members? Molly, over to you.
Thanks, Derek. Just in terms of what we're asked to do to delegate powers to officers, I think that's a reasonable request. But I would ask that the report that comes back around the options that we do have includes, you know, the costs that we could be liable for if we are moving investments, taking them out of one fund and putting them into another. But yeah, if the officers believe there is scope for that income to be increased in a sustainable way, I think it's reasonable that we allow them to go and look into that.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Pauline, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I took it down because Molly actually said it was the costings for me, if we could, yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
But other than that, yep.
Yeah.
Pretty happy, thank you.
Yeah, I think, you know, looking at it from my own point of view, we do have officers in the council who deal with funds like this on a regular basis, and I thought that maybe Katrina Stachen and the team who handle the pension fund might have had a role to play here. You know, I'm not certain, but maybe we could ask for the education staff to liaise with the staff looking after the pension fund as being a sensible way to look at this before they come forward with proposals. at the next stage. So with that, I'm not, you know, I don't see the need to put an amendment in to say that, but maybe we can just note that in the conclusions. Would that be okay, Fiona? Or would we need a formal amendment?
Sorry, I had a bit of trouble getting my camera back on then. I can put that as an additional recommendation in the minutes if everybody's in agreement for it.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
you know, they're the people who handle other funds for the council. So
Yeah.
I think it would
I'll
make
mark
sense
that down
to.
as an additional action.
Okay. They do pension funds, and they do some of the common good funds as well. So I think for these that would maybe be the way ahead. Okay. So our members in agreement that the recommendations are, it rolls over the page, which isn't helping me. The committee are invited to review and note the contents of the report and delegate authority to education officers to explore options to improve investment income and report findings back to the committee. And we've added in discussion with the pension fund managers, and named the officer involved in that. So are we agreed with that? Okay, right.
Can
The
I
next,
interject? Excuse me, Councillor Loud.
you
Would you
certainly
mind if
can.
I
Yep.
just interject, just to say that I've received apologies from Councillor Smith. She's had to go to the vet with her pet, so that's why she's not here today. So her apologies are in, please.
Okay, thanks very much, Helen. Right, item 5 is the housing performance report. And I'm seeing we have Liam and Colin, I think, both here from the housing service. I don't know. Do you want to introduce the report, Liam?
Yes, of course. Hello, good morning, members. Today I'll be presenting the housing performance report for Easter Ross from the 1st of April 2022 to 31st of March 23 for the Cromty-Firth and Taylor Easter Ross wards. With me, I have Colin Sharp, who is as you're probably aware, the area repairs manager for the area, and Colin will be able to answer any, and Colin will be able to answer any questions you might have on repairs. So I'll try to be brief, and I'd just like to highlight a few of the key performance indicators in the report that I'd like to bring to your attention. Under the repairs section, item 5.3 details the average time taken to complete emergency repairs. Times across both wards are well within the 14-hour target, and Cromty-Firth ward times are below the Highland average, so we appear to be doing well there. Item 5.6 details the amount of time and days taken to complete non-emergency repairs. Cromty-Firth ward has just crept out with the target time of 8 days, but remains within benchmark. And the Tane and Easter Ross ward are comfortably within target time. If we scroll down to the tenancy management part of the report, item 6.2 details the average relet time of void properties. Cromty-Firth has performed well throughout the year, being well within the target time of 35 days. Tane and Easter Ross were initially out with the target time, though within benchmark, but this has been brought back within target in Q3 and Q4, so everything seems to be in good order. Moving on to rent arrears, item 7.2. Unfortunately, we don't have such good news with rent arrears. Rent arrears continue to increase across both wards, a trend which has been consistent across Highland. Housing officers continue to work closely with tenants in arrears to provide all available means of support. Typically, this will include things like Referrals to external support agencies such as housing support, referrals to internal support agencies such as the welfare support team and an intensive support officer. We'll also refer to agencies such as citizens advice bureaus and charities to help with the income maximisation and the cost of living crisis, which I suspect is the root cause of the increase in rent arrears. I'm sure you've heard this all before. And in high level cases, where all efforts have been exhausted to get tenants to engage with housing, we do have the option to progress through the court systems if we need to, but that is an absolute last resort, and it's something which, thankfully, in the vast majority of cases, we don't even need to consider because most of our tenants are engaging with us in a responsible way. So that's the kind of whistle-stop tour. I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Colin. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Liam. And I'm going to put it over to the councillors to see if they have any questions they want to put to you on the report. Molly, over to you first.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Liam. Obviously, everything looks in broad order with repairs, but arrears really do look concerning or kind of ballooning. Do you have an idea of the percentage of the housing stock in Cromarty Firth that is in arrears? Because from the report, we can't really tell if it's like a small number of properties with huge debts or if it's broadly spread out across. And I think that would be helpful for us to understand.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have that figure as a percentage. I do have it as a kind of in terms of broad numbers. So within the Cromarty Firth ward, we have approximately 1,445 properties in total. Of those properties, sorry, I should have put in a slight caveat here that these numbers I'm about to give you are accurate as of the end of Q4. So they're a few weeks out of date, but they may be good for an indication. Of those 1,445 total properties, 593 were in arrears. I think it's important to note that when we calculate the number of properties that are in arrears, it's a very fluid figure because it'll depend, even depends on the time of month that we run the report, but it will include properties which have 1 penny of arrears. It's quite arbitrary in that respect. So some of these properties that are in arrears, it's just because perhaps a payment hasn't come in, but they're actually managing their rent perfectly well. But Cromarty Firth, 593 in arrears at the end of Q4.
Okay, the next hand up was Tamala.
Oh,
Pauline's
that's all right, on you go,
me.
pal. I'll go after
No,
you.
it's okay. All right.
Who's going? Me?
Sure.
Yes, you go. You go.
Thank you so much, Liam, Liam and Colin for the report. It's just a quick, a concerning matter in my ward. I can only talk about my ward. There's lots of, counts, social rented housing work has not been done for quite a long time, it seems. These people are waiting for a long time. Now, for an example, one case, the lady has been waiting for 4 years for work to undergo. So I'm just wondering, are we actually having a time frame? Like you said, 35 days is the bench, the cutoff time that you're trying to do everything within. I might be wrong, but just.
Yeah, if you don't mind me coming in there, Councillor, I'll go through what our response times are for repairs. If someone's waiting 4 years...
Going with the report.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I think Councillor's frozen.
Councillor Collier has frozen from the looks of things.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me.
Are you back? Yeah. I'm afraid you kind of froze there, Tamala. We don't know exactly
Oh,
what.
is it me? Sorry.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
started breaking up, so I thought, oh,
No,
I
it's
ca- I
only
can-
you.
I
Sure.
can't see.
Okay, Colin was
Sorry, my
Colin
friend.
was going to try
I can
and
go
give you a
through.
reply. Yeah,
Yeah,
on you
sorry,
go,
I
Colin.
can go through the response times for our standard repair codes, if you like. So an emergency,
Yeah,
our
that's
response time is meant to be within 14 hours. We do obviously try and do a lot better than that, but that is the benchmark that we are set by. With regards to routine repairs, now those are on, as you know, 8 days. We have to respond to those queries. Following that, we have minor works, which is within 3 months. I would be astounded if anyone is waiting 4 years for a repair. Astounded, I really would. Now, I would put a caveat into that the lady may well be waiting on capital works, so that maybe she's waiting on a new kitchen or a new bathroom, or heating, windows, doors, that type of work. Now, if they're currently serviceable, they would be put forward for capital programming rather than done in an individual way. So it's quite possible that she's waiting on that being added. However, and again, if the item, kitchen, bathroom, is beyond economic repair and is beyond servicing repair, we will replace. Irrespective, we will do that. So if she has a problem, she can either come back to yourself or come to me directly, and I will ensure that that is looked into.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that explanation,
problem.
Colin, because I'm new to this and I'm going from one end to the other end and trying to collate all the information I get. And also, I don't know whether you have heard about the mold issue with the houses. Lots of the social renting properties,
Yes.
they keep saying that they get mold time and time again, no
They
matter what
do.
they do. So I don't know whether I'm sure it's not a new
I
thing
can give you an
for,
update on that because we've recently
yeah.
changed how we operate regarding mould. Because at present, anyone that reports to the service centre of mould or damp is now automatically a works order is raised for an independent contractor to go out, investigate, to provide a report that is supplied to the tenant. We don't hide that, on the causes of the mould. They have also been instructed to treat the mould at inspection. So they will go out and they will put an antifungal paint or something like that onto the mould. Now, I've been in construction for all of my adult life, pretty much, and I'm not going to say how many years that is, but it's a few. And 90% of mold issues are caused, and we don't like using the word lifestyle, but I suppose it's about how people manage the property themselves. We do get repeated calls of mold, but we also have the same ones where that tenant advises that they're not heating the house because they can't afford to heat the house. That will inevitably generate mold. There is no doubt about it. So the only way that we can deal with it is by having that independent report. Now, we will action within reason the recommendations that are in that report. If that report recommends it's externally insulated, for example, that's not something we would be able to just do off the cuff, because you're looking at about £40,000 to externally insulate a house nowadays, and that's just not something that we can do at the click of our fingers. But if they identify cold bridging through loft insulation problems, or if they identify that there's a leak in a pipe or there's a problem with the roof, these will all be actioned and all the works will be carried out. But each individual tenant that puts a mold complaint in should receive a copy of that independent contractor's report.
Right. Thank you so much, Colin.
No problem
Thanks.
at all.
Okay, and Pauline,
Hi.
with apologies.
Oh no, don't be daft.
you should-
That's
you should have
no
been,
wee delicate. I don't
yeah.
mind at all.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you, Colin and Liam. It was a very interesting report as usual. It's always a housing and mold. Mold is my biggest problem. I get what you're saying about these reports that go to these people. The problem that we have is that we're not privy to any reports going to them. So we are getting message after message after message about and pictures. Some of these pictures, I have to be honest with you, I mean, some of it landed up on Facebook and it's hard because we can't answer back to it because we're not allowed to really say why. Really, let's be honest, we can't, because we're alienating quite a few of the people that are supporting these people. And listen, this is not your fault, guys. I know that. I'm well aware of that. But it would be good if we could, you know, have sort of some comeback. So if we were told that yes, actually they have had a report, they haven't done anything to change that, that would be really helpful, because we have nothing at the moment. And I can tell you, if you look in my phone just now, it's all mold. Pictures of mold and potholes that you can actually do nothing against. But that's how excited our list gets. So it would just be good if they were given even like a numbered system where somebody will be out at this time, somebody will come and see you, somebody, because half the time they're not in, but they're not telling us they're not in. So again, you guys are getting slated, and I do find it hard. I'm sure the other councillors do. Where do you go with that? What do you do with that? I mean, I'm poor Colin and poor Lee. Sorry, I'm getting all the names wrong. Is it Colin Mackenzie? Who's the repair guys? Keith Mackenzie. They're brilliant,
Yeah.
and they come out as quick as they can. They do what they can. Unfortunately, sometimes it's never enough, but it would be quite good if we could just get some sort of comeback to say, well, actually, no, somebody has been out, and you do have to be a bit more patient. Even if we could say that, but at the moment we say that, we're seeing it even though we don't know. Do you know what I mean? So I think it is a big issue, and I don't think we're helping ourselves, if I'm just being perfectly honest.
Okay.
Sorry to be so doom and gloom, but the report, I agree with.
Okay, Colin, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I'll just come back. I absolutely. There's so many things that I agree with you. I mean, I try and be open and honest and as transparent as I possibly can regarding these things. These are major challenges, and a lot of them are out with our control. Now, that doesn't take away the sympathy I have for a lot of people living in these conditions. Absolutely, I am. I hate seeing people live like that, but I'm bound by what I'm supposed to do in my job. And if these reports are identifying the problems as being, and I don't like using the word caused by, because there's so many different reasons that you can have mold. There really is. But if it's through the tenant being unable to heat the property through, you know, financial reasons, or not ventilating the property, or there are so many different things. I can't fix that. There's nothing there for me to actually repair. You know, if I could, I absolutely would. Now we can treat the mold, but that mold will then just be back in 6 weeks. And I suppose it's a sort of policy maybe issue that needs to be looked at, is how do we deal with that moving forward? Because I'd run out of money very quickly if I'm going into houses just treating mold every 6 weeks, you know, and for something that isn't a repair defect. But that doesn't take away my understanding of the actual problem, and how we deal with that. And that will only be dealt with, I suppose, by major investment in insulation, you know. So, and that, I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of pounds, you know, that is required for that. There's difficulties with contractors as well, willing to come and work in the Highlands and in certain areas to do these work. The cost of external insulation, as I say, has doubled in the last couple of years, from an average of £20,000 per property to £40,000 per property. You know, so that has a big impact. Regarding the reports, if we have a report done, I have no issue at all with it being supplied to anyone. It is an independent report. Even if it is critical of the council or the housing department or my service or whoever, well, say I don't mind it. Of course, I mind it being critical because it means we're not doing something right. But I want to know if we're doing something wrong. And it's the only way that I can get that is through a report. So if it tells me we're doing something wrong, I have no problem supplying that to a tenant or yourselves and go, this is what we're doing to address the matter, you know, because we will address it. But if it does state that the problem is due to a lack of heating and ventilation, that becomes an even bigger problem, because most people don't like being told that they're contributing or causing a fault. You know, it's not to do with them, it's the council, and it's them not doing something. So it is very, very difficult, and people do say it's not an independent report because they work for the council. Well, anybody that's employed to carry out a report for the council is employed by the council. You know, that's the nature of it. But they are all told, and they're all fully aware, it has to be independent. I'm not looking for them to cover, because you get found out on that. There's no point. I'm looking for an honest report as to what the problems are. That enables me to then try and address it. So if there has been a report, it can be supplied to you. So if you are contacting Keith or myself or anything like that, I would send a report back if it was available, or I would make a note to ensure that that report is forwarded on to you. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Alistair, I think you're next.
Thanks. I think one of the problems that's been this discussion's highlighted to me is when you take something to somebody within the council, within the housing services. So, for example, I took one or two Ballantor issues. One was mould in a lady's house. One was a fence at the back of somebody's property. And, you know, you put it in, you get a say, well, we'll look into this. But then suddenly we never hear anything about it. So I see the lady on the high street. I say, did they ever come to see your house? No, never had them, Alistair. On the man about the fence, he came back the last 2 days to say nothing's happened with the fence. And this started on Fiona Robinson's days, so it's been going on a long time. And I think in an email I sent in last night to Rory McLeod, I was saying all we need to know is one way or the other. Yes, we'll deal with this, or no, we won't deal with it, so that we can go back to the people and say, yeah, the council won't accept that, they won't do it, or yes, the council will come in and do it, but maybe a few months away. So, you know, I'm not blaming our officers that's on the screen here this morning. With maybe I'm not sending the things in to the right people, but certainly they've been sent down the line, but positivity hasn't come out of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. Colin, back to you.
Just to respond to that initial query regarding reports not being attended to, it's definitely a problem. Is the amount of ways that issues can be reported to maintenance officers. Right. We generally try and signpost everybody to the service centre because calls are recorded, it's logged, it's there. In the best will of the world, it happens to me, and I'm sure it happens to yourselves as well. You'll get an email in and you'll look at it and go, right, I'll deal with that. And then before you know it, it's well off the bottom of your page and it's gone, you know, and trying to get back to that is quite difficult, which is why I always say, please ensure it's reported to the service centre because it will get an appropriate response. The service centre are able to issue somewhere in the region of 80% of our works orders are issued by the service centre. So if someone phones the service centre, they're much more likely to get an immediate response than if they try and go direct either through yourselves or through, you know, the maintenance officers or through another channel, cab, whoever they come through. There is numerous times I've had, you know, nobody's done anything about this, what's happening type of emails, and I've looked it up and it's never been reported by the tenant. Now the tenant will say, well, I did report it because I told it to somebody else. Well, it's not on my system, so I can't tell whether it is or it isn't, which is why, again, I would always try and signpost people, please go to the service centre, because it will, and I know there are major delays in the service centre and what have you, and people get very frustrated with that because they can't get through to someone. But I mean, that's probably the only thing, because if it's recorded, it should be actioned. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. So I apologise if that hasn't happened. And if you can, Councillor Ryan, if you can give me the details of those addresses in Ballantor, I'll happily look into those and ensure that that is remedied.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Molly, back to you.
Thanks very much. It's been a really interesting conversation, and I suspect that we're not the only area committee that have these frustrations. And it just strikes me that it's possibly an opportunity for somebody. I'm not on the Housing and Property Committee myself, but if somebody is, that we could potentially put a motion to Housing and Property just about how we signpost tenants towards getting their complaints logged appropriately so that this sort of thing doesn't happen. And I don't think there's a really an action for the committee at this stage. I just sort of want to put it on the record, and I might speak to some colleagues who are on that committee about what we can do to sort of bring this to the Housing and Property Committee's attention.
Thanks, Molly. That was that's a useful suggestion. So thanks for that. Tamala, your hand's up.
Thanks. It's a question for Liam regarding homelessness, and if someone applied for a house and they got a temporary homeless house, like a temporary property given, are they supposed to keep that property if it suits them for good, or have they to return it back? Because I've got a family who's got a temporary accommodation given, but they're happy with the house and they want to see if they can keep it. So I'm just trying to find out, is that the process or is it just a temporary property they get?
Okay, thank you. I need to put in a slight caveat that I'm the principal officer for the permanent tenancies in Rossshire, and we have a separate gentleman, Derek Manson, who is for the temporary accommodation, the homeless units that we have. I can give you some overview that if somebody's placed in what we call a TFU, which is temporary furnished unit, which is where they would typically be placed if they were being if they were homeless and they were waiting for a permanent allocation. In some circumstances, those properties can be flipped so that they can be made into someone's permanent tenancy. I'm not really in a position to say what the criteria for that are. I would suggest it depends on stock availability and a variety of other things, but really that's Derek's remit. But I can confirm that yes, that does happen from time to time. What I could do is I could ask Derek to get in touch and give you a more kind of detailed overview of when that might happen and when it might not happen, if that's of any use.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Liam. Thanks.
Okay, Pauline, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I was just going to say to Tamala, yeah, I think Liam just said it, but yeah, Derek and Keodale, they're fantastic. There's a couple of times where families have been put in these places locally here, Tamala, and it has been able to, they have been able to stay, but it does take a bit of, you know, work from the council, but they have been able to stay. So if you get in touch with Kay even and Derek, they are really, really good. They should help you. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just thought it might help.
Okay. Everybody's hands up. Helen Ross was first.
I wanted to say that I'm sure that Derek and the accommodation team, what they'll be looking at is obviously what they're able to do within their allocation policy, because obviously, you know, that's their guide for the allocation of all houses, and that will include homeless applicants in our accommodation or indeed another accommodation. But Derek obviously will clarify when he's asked to.
Thanks, Helen. Colin, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in on sort of the homeless accommodation as well, because obviously we do the maintaining and repair of those. Derek can I'm not going to use the word annoy, that's maybe a little bit strong myself every now and again, because we do turn a lot of units, a lot of mainstream properties into tenant furnished units, and then Derek is sometimes very keen to turn those into mainstream units for the tenant to remain in that property, and then immediately asking for another mainstream unit to be turned into a furnished unit to help with the home. So I'm not particularly keen on furnished units moving back into mainstream, and that's purely budgetary reasons for that for me, because it takes a lot more to repair and turn a property into a furnished unit than it does, you know, for any other normal mainstream void. So having a property turned into a furnished unit and then into a mainstream, and then turn a mainstream into a furnished unit. So why didn't you just keep the furnished unit you had? You know, so it's complicated, but I know that Derek does very much look at how he allocates furnished units towards mainstream, despite at times my objections to that happening. But he does do it, and that's his remit, and that is entirely his role to do. I just try and make sure that I put my point across as to the cost implications for that. But he is responsible for homelessness, and he tries very hard to keep that down. So I have to appreciate his position as well. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's only one person hasn't spoken so far, and that'll be me. So, you know, I don't want to go over ground that it has already been covered. For me, the standout was the rent arrears, and I do think that's austerity and the cost of living crisis. You know, it's creeping. If you look at the numbers, it's creeping up every quarter. The figures are higher than they were the quarter before, and that is not in any way a criticism of the staff involved. There's nothing you can do about this. This is really driven by energy prices. And food prices, and until those start to move in the opposite direction, you know, we have an ongoing crisis. You know, Colin, you know, you're quite right. The situation with damp is caused, you know, quite often by the lack of heating or the lack of ventilation, but people simply can't afford to turn the heating on. So it's a problem for us, but it's a crisis for everybody out there. And you know, our hearts should go out to the tenants who are trying very hard to keep all the plates spinning when there simply isn't the money there to do that. So yeah, I think let's hope that we start to see. Doesn't look very likely, but let's hope we start to see energy bills and food prices coming down again, and giving people a little more scope and a little more leeway to pay all these bills. Okay, so our committee is invited to consider the information provided on the housing performance in the period 1st of April 22 to 31st of March 23. Colin, you've got your hand up.
Sorry, I just wanted to finish off by, obviously there are a number of new members in the committee, so congratulations and welcome as well. I just want to say, I am, if you wish to visit me in the depot in Alness at any point, for me to show your building maintenance teams, for me to take you into some of our void properties that we have returned, you can see the condition that they're coming back in, or you could have a look at some of the properties that we're about to hand back to tenants also, so you can see the condition that they're going to be handed back into tenants, because understanding, I suppose, the empty home standard as to what our obligations are towards tenants, and showing this is the type of property you can expect when you get a council house, would be very beneficial for yourselves to understand that, so you've not got a tenant coming back to you going, I don't like how this part has been left, or I don't like how that has been done, because it may well still meet the empty home standard, but they're just not happy with a decorative condition or something like that. So I am more than happy to say, take people a tour around this depot. You can meet some of the building maintenance team, meet the team leaders, meet the people that are doing the voids, you know, that kind of thing, maintenance officers, and on-site visits if you wish to go and have a look at some properties that you probably would be astounded that they come back in these types of
Yeah.
conditions. You know, or you probably won't. But as I say, I just wanted to throw that invite out there to anyone and just liaise directly with me if you wish to do that, and we can make those arrangements. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that offer, Colin.
I'll speak to you soon, Colin. Fantastic, thank you.
The committee is invited to consider the information provided on housing performance in the period 1st April 22 to 31st March 23. Can we agree that we've done that? Agreed, that's fine. The next paper is ward discretionary awards. I don't know, Helen, if you want to comment on that one.
Well, to be honest, Councillor Adden, I wasn't actually going to comment. This is really here just to give a little bit more visibility to the awards that we made, because those of you who've been councillors for a very long time may recall that we used to always take a print out of our ward budget allocations to ward forums, and we're obviously not doing that. So although they go on the website, most people probably won't see them there. So it's really just to give it a little bit of visibility. Obviously happy to answer if there's any questions, but you know, it's going to be on agendas from now on, not with a report attached, because as I say, really aimed at just giving a little bit more visibility to what the ward budget has been able to support.
That's fine. Does anybody have any questions on that report, or are we happy? The committee is invited to note the circulated ward discretionary awards information for the periods 1st April 22 to 31st March 23 and 1st April 23 to 30th April 23. Can we agree we've done that? That's fine. Circulated just for noting are the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any problems with the minutes, or are we happy just to note them? That's okay, they're noted. Item 8 is exclusion of the public. The committee is asked to resolve that under section 50A4 of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. The public should be excluded from the meeting for the following item on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 6 and 9 of part 1 of schedule 7A of the Act. So are we agreed that we should exclude the public from the next part of the meeting? And if that's the case, Fiona, can you switch the web?